Good morning on the East Coast. Hello to everyone. Good afternoon and evening around the world. I hope you are all doing well. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are super excited today because one of our favorite people in the FDA has come to share the story of how the FDA has reduced costs and enhanced BI performance within the analytics department there at the FDA. And I'd like to give a very warm welcome to our special guest, Mr. Rajesh Sripada. He's Director of Business Intelligence and Data Management at the FDA. Of course, my name's Nathan Crook, Senior Director here with GB and Smith. And I, as always, joined with Pauline Lancaster, our favorite Senior Pre-Sales Engineer, for taking us through today's presentation. So with that, I would like to, of course, remind everyone that we have a couple of ways of interacting. They're on the right-hand side of your screen. You've got a GoToWebinar control panel. There is a questions section. Please feel free to ask questions as we go along. We're going to do our best to either answer, of course, quickly if there's a quick answer to give, and then we have a Q&A session at the end where we will address any questions that need to get in details. We will be sending out the recording at the completion of today's presentation. And of course, as always, help us in our constant quest for improvement. Please, at the exit survey, let us know how we're doing. Let us know how we can improve. If there's topics, if there's anything that you feel would be valuable to you, of course, that's a great time to bring that up, or of course, feel free to put in the questions. But without further ado, let's move in to, yes, participation. Kind of went over that, so we'll just keep it moving. Yeah, now this is what it looks like, of course. 360 Suite for Business Objects is much more than just the 8 different pieces that make up, technically the solution. Our customers help or leverage the 360 Suite to help them with many different types of business processes, upgrades, migrations, getting deeper into metadata and impact analysis, reducing costs, which of course is one of the big topics of today. Security, compliance, automation. This has been a big one in conversations that I've had with a lot of different IT managers and directors around in different departments. Anywhere that they can create automation, efficiency, giving people bulk capabilities, self-service, extending all of the necessary information for doing a better job of delivering analytics to the organization. Any and all of these are areas where a lot of our customers are finding true value in the 360 Suite. So that's where we're going to dive deep into on how the FDA is delivering that to their organization. So I believe we are now going to bring, I believe we're going to bring, we're going to give Rajesh the presentation, right, and start up the presentation. There we go.
Thank you, Nathan. Can you confirm if you can see my screen?
I can see your screen. Just hit presentation mode and we'll get going.
All right. Thank you and good morning all for taking time to call into the webinar today, and thank you to 360 Suite for inviting me to talk about our experiences and our work with the FDA. I've been personally involved working with FDA for the last 10 to 13 years in the analytics area. I work for a company called Audit, and we are prime contractors to FDA. So in today's webinar, I wanted to cover some of the stories that experiences and successes, and of course some challenges that we've had at the FDA. So the agenda is the landscape at, the business objects landscape at FDA, some of the growth curve challenges and solutions that we've had. I'll talk a little bit more detailed about how BOBJ helped resolve those challenges and how 360 Suite as well helped in meeting some of the challenges when it comes to monitoring and auditing. And we'll also introduce a landing page which really helped us, resolve some of our communication challenges and how to get the word out to the users. And then I'll also share some game-changing business intelligence strategy that we've been pretty successful at FDA that we've learned over the years, and some of the success factors, and then we can go into the Q&A. But again, during the presentation, if you have some questions, feel free to put them on the chat. So the landscape at FDA, we have 6 environments, 4 in the intranet and 4 in the extranet. So in the intranet, we have development, test, pre-production, and production environments. And in the extranet, for some of the customers that are outside of the agency, like NIH and CDC, they also use FDA data. So for them, some applications are put in the extranet environment. And for the scope-wise, we also do O&M support and also some of the DME task orders that the different FDA centers put in requests for. And if you know FDA pretty well, it's a more siloed kind of environment. It's enterprise-wide, but then you have different centers that have their own data and their own challenges and their own requirements. So FDA as a whole, when you look at it from the outside, it's like an enterprise-wide, but from the inside, it's very siloed. Center for Drugs has their own data. Center for Radiological Health has their own data. Center for Tobacco, they have their own data. And we, as in the business objects, is installed enterprise-wide. So that kind of gives us an inroad into all the different data types and data issues. So we, like I said, I started about 13 years ago in 2006 at FDA. And at that point, if you really look at this growth curve, it was way down where standard reports was the norm of the day. People were more, running tabular reports. At that time, the usage was not as sophisticated. And then 3 years down, 4 years down, users started to become more sophisticated, and dashboards, visualization, self-service. As the BI industry started getting matured, users within FDA as well wanted to have access to those specific tools. So it was a challenging, task for us to bring the users from standard reports up until the middle of the curve where we are today, data exploration, visualization, self-service area. But our goal is to, get into more advanced analytics, but we're getting there slowly and steadily. But then this journey from standard reports to get right up to this exploration, it wasn't easy. It was, pretty good challenges with regard to performance, with regard to ad hoc reporting, self-service. And when we spend a little bit of time in terms of understanding, what these challenges were, they were pretty common across the board, even what we found with other agencies. And I'll talk about a little bit more about these challenges and how we really resolve them, especially the ones relating to performance, the ones relating to ad hoc reporting and self-service, automation and chargeback. And the solutions, the tools really like HANA, the dashboards, 360 Suite, and the Explorer, how they really helped us get through these challenges. Our strategy mostly has been threefold. One is to identify, design, and implement. It's pretty straightforward, kind of a strategy. We really went into, like I mentioned, each of these FDA centers are so siloed. So we go to each of these offices, each of these centers, really understand what their challenges, what their pain points were. We gathered those requirements, and instead of just flashing a demo with all these flashy details, we actually would build a pilot that would resolve their challenge or part of their challenge using their data. This really resonated very, very well with the customers or prospective customers, because they would see a solution to their challenges using their own data. And we used to call these pilots as pilots ready to go to production. So the effort we put in is not wasted. So we show them a little bit of how the solution would be and how we would resolve their challenges, and then go in and estimate, get the funding for really taking that pilot to get into production. So that's been a very, very successful approach in really getting to these new customers. As most of you would really know, when we go in to speak to a customer and ask them for some funding, the first thing you would hear is, well, we have no money, but they have a ton of challenges. So we would rather ask them what they can give us, which is challenges, and then prove that challenge, that we can turn that around, make it as a benefit, or have a solution for the challenge, and then ask for the funding. 9 out of 10 times, people really go and find money when they know that, yes, we can, solve the challenge. So Nathan, I would pass it on to you for a poll.
Absolutely. So let me get that poll up here. So the first question of the day is, are you using SAP HANA to power business objects? And there's 4 different answers. Just curious, the different makeup of the audience, see how you are architecting your business objects landscape. If you've got more to add to this, like the type of environment that you have around business objects, feel free to put it in the questions. Always adds good context to the people here, and to give better insight into everyone that is attending. So we've got about 54% of the voted. If you are on, make sure that you are participating. That's how we get the most out of this. There we go. Now I'm seeing it go up. I'm going to give this just a few more seconds. We've got a few more people that have yet to vote. All right, so I'm going to close this up and share the results. So this is interesting. You got 13% that have HANA as a data source for reports and dashboards. Nobody that's actually using it on top of business objects in the audience, but several people who are planning to. And then middle percentage that aren't planning to, of course, which, you have to have a use case. So it makes sense that there are going to be those that don't. So interesting. I'm going to hide these results and bring it back into your presentation. And Rajesh, I can see your screen, so you're welcome to continue.
Thank you, Nathan. That was an interesting poll. So HANA, right? So going through the challenges, I talked about the first challenge was, or the main challenge was about performance. So when we dug a little bit more deeper in terms of why performance is an issue with most of these centers, we found out that majority of them, or at least 90%, over 90% of them, were using a transactional database at the back end as a reporting database, which really caused the bottleneck And again, that was the majority of the issues. There are other things that contributed to performance. Some of them like queries, not being, done right, and also the layers that you have between in not having a data warehouse or having a data warehouse between the indexes, aggregates. So if you look at this graphic, the old way, the traditional way is you can see the layers between the user and the data. This has been adding to a lot of latency between when the query is run, especially with long queries, when users were retrieving data for about 5 years, 10 years. That was causing a lot of latency and frustration, arguably. The new way of doing things and the way we resolve those performance issues is by introducing HANA, which is the reporting database from SAP. It has a lot more than a reporting database, but for today's discussion, we'll keep it that way. So we eliminated all the layers between the user and the data because HANA is able to take care of all those tasks within itself because it is designed to be a reporting database. Now the user is directly hitting HANA and not their source transactional database. And because the data is in memory within HANA, it's much more faster to render the data, and the users right away saw the difference. Since we introduced HANA at FDA about 2 years ago, we no longer see the tickets regarding performance, and users are extremely happy in how fast they can get to the data, but not only fast, but HANA is able to go and get the data from their source systems, whether it's Oracle, whether it's a SQL database, an Access database, a spreadsheet, doesn't matter. HANA can just go in as long as it has access to the source systems and bring all the data into one single interface. So that was a major challenge that we were able to resolve at the back end. Now the other issues, other challenges we had were with regard to self-service and ad hoc capability. For the longest time at FDA, I think for over 5 or 6 years, we only had Web Intelligence as the reporting tool. And since the users got more and more sophisticated, they were requesting for visualization and self-service. That's when we upgraded to the BI suite to include Explorer, Analysis for Office, Lumira, and then Design Studio, and of course Web Intelligence. And as we speak, we are currently in 4.1 SP9 version, and we are actually testing the 4.2 SP6 version, which we'll be moving in shortly. That will give our users much more enhanced Web Intelligence and a newer Lumira discovery tool, which will help them to really meet the challenges with regard to self-service and with regard to ad hoc reporting capability. Nathan, I pass it on to you to talk about 360.
Right. So this was kind of where I was alluding to there at the beginning, talking about how we were partnering with the FDA team to help them deliver 360 Suite and leverage that across to mainly gain insight and maximize efficiency with regard to getting all of the metadata underneath the covers of business objects. A lot of that, tuning anything with regard to HANA views. This has been a really big source of efficiency, because you can give the end users who are actually doing the work access to reports so that they can do impact analysis and help if you're going from an older a legacy backend to a HANA backend, or even just doing some sort of parallel upgrade, even if you're going from the same backend to the new backend, being able to do impact analysis across that, including HANA, BW, and traditional databases, gives a tremendous amount of insight and efficiency to the process. Giving more automation. I think this, as I mentioned at the outset there, has been a big win for a lot of our customers, especially in those forward-looking IT departments where they understand, we buy technology to create efficiency. Well, creating efficiency oftentimes has to do with leveraging automation. And we give a ton of different ways to automate processes around business objects to create that efficiency. GRC is a huge impact, especially in the federal government, but private organizations dealing with things like SOX, dealing with things like GDPR and HIPAA requirements. All of those different requirements often get overlooked when it comes to reporting and analytics, and that simply is an oversight if you aren't looking at ways to tag content, to ensure your disaster recovery is up to date and tested. All of those types of things and much more are essential to meeting those types of requirements, and those are oftentimes where we are able to deliver improved capabilities to business object customers. And of course, self-service, facilitating chargeback. This was a huge one for you, Rajesh, correct?
Absolutely. Thanks, Nathan. And I think those are the gaps that 360 really helped bridge the gap at FDA. For the longest time, and I have a few use cases in the slides ahead, but I want to just give an oversight, just a preview in terms of how 360 really helped us resolve some of the challenges when it comes to monitoring, auditing, and also chargeback. At FDA, we have about 8,000 active users, and we have 10 different centers with 500,000 reports and about 300 universes. So what really that entails to is, you can imagine the last 10 years, the amount of reports, the amount of data that's there, and when users come to us and say, we want to delete this particular object from the universe, can you please let us know what other reports get impacted? We did not have an intelligent way of getting back to the users because natively through business objects, it wasn't a direct way for us to get that information. You can imagine 500,000, reports on public folders and about 8,000 users, who knows how many reports they have in their favorite folders. So there was no way for us to find out which reports would be affected in a most direct way. And plus it was very time consuming for us to find that information. That's the gap that 360 really helped us, where we could directly run a report within minutes and be able to give the user a list of all the reports that would be impacted if a particular object from the universe or from the database was deleted. That was one example. Another example is like chargeback, like the OINT, which is the IT branch of FDA, would like to now go back to the centers and have them fund for the usage of the product. Again, there was no way for us to really go back and give them the reports that we can really back up. Okay, here are the number of users that use business objects, until we had 360. 360 monitoring really helped us to get that information, back it up with reports that said, here are the X number of users from your center that have used business objects. So this could be used by FDA to go back to the center and have that percentage of funding come from them. So that was a very useful addition to our BS suite. But I have more use cases as we go forward. Here's another, I want to talk about web intelligence a little bit. I mean, the 90% of our users at FTA use web intelligence, and we are so excited about 4.2 and how enhanced web intelligence is. And I might also add that since FDA is a regulatory agency, I'm not allowed to share the data. So all the data that you see here is dummy data. It's not live data. Just a disclaimer. But again, web intelligence has been the go-to tool for most of the users when it comes to obviously tabular, but now with the enhancements, you can also have graphs and a lot more ways of displaying data. One other challenge that we had was from one of the centers that deals with drug approvals and reviews. There is a large amount of clinical narratives that come into that center. I mean, just to throw some numbers out, they get about 1.5 million cases a year. And if you have to calculate that with the number of days available, about 260 working days, and it boils down to like each reviewer has to go through about 30 to 40 pages manually a day, which is a daunting task for any person humanly possible. So they came to us to work on a pilot to provide a solution for them, for the reviewers and medical officers. So we looked at BOBJ and HANA, the natural language processing and text analytics, to really read through all the clinical trial summary and pull out valuable information. So the reviewers generally look at information like, for example, if there was an adverse event that was reported and an incident occurred, is that incident related to the patient taking that drug, or is it because the patient had some family history behind that really contributed to the incident? This is an important piece of information for the reviewer when reviewing the drug. So unless and until you read that information, the reviewer would not know. And like I said, it's humanly impossible to read all those narratives. The technology really to come in and pick out that information and highlight that information to the reviewer was huge for FDA. So the current pilot that we're running for them really helps with that information. The natural language processing is able to pull out, highlight, and tell the reviewers. So if you see on the graph, it really highlights which are the top cases that they can go in and then look into much more detailed information. So that's really helping them out and with that challenge. Another one is to eliminate, this was with another center where they had a huge challenge of duplicating data. Users were very comfortable working with Access database when the source database was Oracle. So they would make copies of the data into an Access database, put them in spreadsheets and do their analysis. So the director of that center was really concerned about data integrity, because if the data in Oracle is updated and if the same data in Access is not, then the users are looking at old data or not live data. So that was a very big concern. So again, using HANA, we bring everything on a nightly basis into HANA. So users are directly connected to HANA, and that's their only data source. So we were able to take care of that concern that way. And this tool, using Explorer, we were really able to give them the ability for self-service as well. Because one of the things that this particular center was having a lot of problems with was about 60 to 70 reviewers would really pound on the IT department to find out about their progress for their cases. So they requested us to give them ability for each of the reviewer to look at the progress themselves. So we use this Explorer tool. So now IT has so much more time in their hands since we have released this version of solution for them. Every reviewer can now go in and look at their own progress and not depend on IT. So self-service aspect took care of it. And in fact, FDA really gave this particular center gave us an award for prescribing the solution, which really fostered self-service among the reviewers. And this tool is so much easy to use. It's just like somebody going to Google and searching. So the learning curve was absolutely zero. And here's another use case where this particular center was dealing with position descriptions within the whole of FDA. You can imagine the number of positions that they would have. And they were working out of spreadsheets. And whenever they get questions from any center asking about different positions and what the status is, they have to shuffle through about half a dozen spreadsheets to get back to them, which is not only time consuming, but very a lot of manual effort. And in order to do that as well, they didn't have a business intelligence really to look at time trends. Where was this position last quarter or last year, this quarter? They were not able to compare unless they did these different analysis on spreadsheets. So every time they had a new question, they have to go back and redo it on the spreadsheet, which was, again, a lot of manual effort. So they came to us and said, can we take these spreadsheets and provide them with a dashboard where they can go back and look at different fiscal years, different quarters, compare the data, look at different position descriptions so they can quickly answer questions that come in through these various centers. So this dashboard is what you see is something that we've developed using, ingesting spreadsheets into HANA and building these dashboards. So again, Design Studio and Web Intelligence really helped us meet their challenges. Nathan, I would like to pass it on to you to take another poll.
Yeah, so we've got a little bit of insight on the people here today around upgrades. So of course, 4.2 SPO7 came out earlier this year. FixPack 1 got released, I think, mid-month last month. And that spawned the question of, are you planning to update your business objects version? Are you thinking about SPO7? Are you still waiting for more FixPacks, more patches and things to come out? If you want to give some context, the questions area would be great. I'm interested to see what the different versions. Of course, 4.3 is coming at the end of this year for the beta, and May, I believe, of next year is planned release for GA. So there's a ton of innovation coming, and one of those things that you want to be getting ready for is the Fiori front end. So once you move to 4.3, the Fiori front end is going to replace the Launchpad completely. And you want to start getting your users used to that. You want to start getting them used to the way that they interact with that. But also, it really creates a ton of really cool results that we were reviewing with the product owners of Webby about 2 weeks ago. You can find the recording on our website under the webinars area, around dashboards, creating dashboards in Webby. Man, they look great. So yes, in the next 3 months, leading at 33% and tied, yes, between 3 to 6 months and 33%. 2020, I'm curious, if you're not planning any update at the moment, is that because you just did update, or is there something larger at foot? You considering new platforms or something else that is not enticing you into updating? But interesting. All right, Josh, I've got it back onto your screen.
Thanks, Nathan. That was interesting. So I want to change gears and time check. We're at 11:34, so we want to take a few more, about 10 minutes more to talk about some of the benefits that we had at FTA using the 360. And these are the top 7 areas that's really helped meet some of the challenges regarding monitoring and impact analysis at FDA using 360. Nathan or Pauline, do you want to talk something about that, and I can chip in as well?
Sure, yeah. So impact analysis with 360 Suite, this was a huge win for FDA. They had a need to be able to identify what reports were impacted by a change, whether it was on the database level or at the universe level. And obviously having over 300,000 reports, it's challenging to have any idea of what's going to be impacted. So with 360, they're able to quickly run a report. These reports are available out of the box, and they filter on any universe object or SQL in the queries and find what the impact is. So that's been a huge help for them. So there's no surprises when going live with changes. The chargeback, which I should mention this earlier, but yeah, being able to identify, who's connecting, who's not connecting, which centers at FDA have the most usage, who's using who's running the most reports, who's taking up the most space. All of that information can be obtained with 360. And I don't know if you have anything else to add. Here's an example of one of the reports that obviously not live data, but FDA is broken down by cost center, and so they can see who's got the number of most actions, refreshes, duration, or they have reports that are running longer, the size of the documents they're creating. They can track the top 10 most used universes and all that information. So getting some of the metrics that FDA was able to get out of 360, being able to say, okay, how many reports are being refreshed per month? Obviously, the upper management likes to know, I'm spending this much on BI, is it being used? So the growth trends, number of distinct users logged in per month, how is the environment growing by documents, by inboxes, by instances? As users are being added to the system, is usage going up? So is there user adoption? Do users need more training maybe, or are they being added that they don't have any intention of using the system? Getting sizing information. So FDA is going through an upgrade right now, being able to see, okay, do we have enough space available? Do we need to add another node to our environment? All of that information is definitely helpful. Monitoring. This was so being able to monitor reports. So I'm sure any of you that have managed business objects have gotten the call saying the system's slow, and typically it's because of ad hoc usage or a report that isn't optimized is running, and you always want to know what's running, and it's impossible within business objects to know what's running. With the monitoring in 360, you can actually see exactly what's running. So you get the call, the system's slow, you can actually see which reports are running, whether they're ad hoc reports, so they haven't been saved, they don't even have a name yet, or it's a regularly scheduled report, or it's just a view on demand report. And FDA has also been able to create watchers so that they can be proactive. They have watchers set up, so anytime a report runs longer than 20 minutes, they'll get an email. It'll tell them the user, the name of the report, and they'll be able to see, okay, maybe the user needs some training, maybe there's some need for optimizing the report. Something's gone wrong, and they can be more proactive about stopping that and contacting the user before maybe it impacts the system. So FDA right now is on 4.1 SP9, and they're moving to SP7. So 360 is helping them with being able to do some cleanup. So prior to doing the upgrade, you always want to clean up your environment. Any unused documents, identifying that. You want to make sure that your security is in place. So they're able to actually do a compare before and after with security, whether it's folders or universes. So that's definitely helpful to make sure you've got the security in place. Being able to find regressions. So if there are differences, maybe there are calculation engine changes between 4.1 and the 4.2 SP7. So being able to identify, running 360 Suite has an automated regression testing tool that will actually compare reports between different environments, different versions, and highlight differences. So usage and non-usage with the universes. being able to identify, these objects are no longer being used. You can reduce the number of objects per universe. This will eliminate maintenance and enhance the performance. Definitely also being able to delete any unused reports as well will help with the performance. So the smaller your environment is, the faster it will perform. Being able to audit, this was one of the needs. FDA needed to identify maintenance windows, so they wanted to know, okay, what reports are running during 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. And they were easily able to identify that so that they could make sure that they're not impacting reports during maintenance hours. Being able to clean up users, do bulk updates, delete, disable users. So if there's a need to disable users, maybe they haven't logged in the last 90 days, you want to disable them. Maybe they've never connected, delete them. So that you're taking, that's probably a security risk to have users in the system that have never connected. So you can delete them, or if they have reports, they've left the organization, they're taking up space that's not needed. So optimize the platform and reduce risk. Cleaning up inboxes, so being able to regularly automate that and set that up so that you're keeping those space lower as needed is definitely helpful, and FDA's been able to do that with 360. Okay. So
Thanks,
yep.
Rich, thank you so much.
Sure.
In fact, I think the cleaning inboxes, especially because we are upgrading to 4.2, and as you know, within your business objects environments too, when you do the upgrade, cleaning house is such an important task. 360 has really given us a good vision in terms of what people have in their inboxes. You can imagine we have about 8,000 users, so it's impossible for us to go through each inbox. And when we ran a report to show what are the number of reports, or at least these, how big, what kind of storage they are occupying, we were really surprised to note that some of the users in their inboxes have reports that have almost 5 gig worth of data. No wonder our repository was like blowing up. So we never had that option before. We did about 4 or 5 upgrades from Business Objects 6.5, which is the older version, to Excite 3, to BI 4.1, and now 4.2. But in all the previous upgrades, we were just bringing the whole thing over and over and over, but we never were able to intelligently or smartly be able to go back to the users and say, do you really need 5 gig worth of data in your inbox, which is nothing but copying whatever is in the public folders. So this time around, with using 360, which gives us a lot more vision into what's in the repository, would help us get back to our users and say, please clean up these before we move to our new house. And the other important part that Pauline touched upon was the web intelligence. And as I mentioned, 90% of our users use web intelligence. Before 360, when users ran huge reports, I'm sure most of you might have experienced this, web intelligence would just stall and then become unresponsive and would take down the server, and then users complain they're not able to get into web intelligence or the launchpad. And then when we go find out, we have to restart web intelligence and then go through the logs, we find out somebody ran a report. But now with 360, we are able to set up thresholds, like if web intelligence reaches 75% of processing, we get an alert. So we go in, and it also tells us which user, what report is running, so we can go directly to the user. So that really helped us be more proactive than being reactive. So in a sense, it helps us maintain and manage the systems a lot better. Since we've had 360 for about, I think, over a year, Especially our administration team has really thanked us for bringing this over, because it made administration of the system so much more easy, because they can see what's going on and react before that becomes an issue. I would like to jump back onto the landing page that I wanted to talk about, that I mentioned earlier. This is a landing page that we've developed as a good communication tool that I wanted to share with you. And over the last 10 years, we've still been perfecting how to communicate what happens in business objects environments to the 8,000 users without missing even one. It's almost impossible. We've sent them emails, we've sent them, webinars, we've put them on the billboards, but still there are a few users that always miss. Oh, when did you do the upgrade? We didn't know that. Oh, did you patch it? We didn't know that. So they just complain why it is down, and we would say, hey, we sent an email, 5 emails in the last 2 weeks talking about the downtime. So we thought an alternative way of coming up with this landing page where we have all the resources. So when users log into BI Launchpad, they go to this page first. And from here, if you notice, we've given them links to development, test, pre-production, production, and now pilot 4.2, which is where they're going to test 4.2. And then we also included EBO alerts, upcoming events. So there's no way to miss. Anybody who logs into Business Objects Production comes here first and then goes through this. Now, I know we're going to get some pushback. Some users are going to say, it's now 2 more clicks to go to where we want to go. So it's either 2 more clicks, but also be informative on what's going on. It's just a balance. Again, we have to take a poll what the majority of our users would like, but then we want to push this solution forward when we go live in 4.2. But again, depends on how our users would take it. But this is a good reference tool for all the SOPs, training tutorials. So we've included everything over here for them. And at the bottom page is general information, like how many tickets we would get on a quarterly basis, and the number of sessions on our servers, and the active user count for all the users using Business Objects, and some training videos that we've gotten from SAP websites and some that we've created. So we hope that this would improve our communication at least by 40%. Even though people don't check their emails, they can come here and check this. I want to leave enough time for our questions. I know we have 12 more minutes. I'll quickly spend a couple of minutes on this slide, and then we'll jump to questions. So our strategy, like I mentioned before, has been threefold, and it's been very successful for us, especially first to go in and determine what is the current business, what is the business vision, what is the reporting that business would like to do, and what is their current landscape. Understanding that really helps us position ourselves. And then coming up with what is the BI maturity level within these centers, how skilled are the users, have they been using any BI before, or are they new to BI before? So that really helps us position and give them what they need, help them along the way, and then give them some BI patterns and what is the patterns for future state, where is the BI industry today using, and then bringing that into FDA in terms of marrying what in technology is available with the current requirements at FDA. So it doesn't mean that artificial intelligence and predictive is like the thing in the industry, but FDA might not still be there to use that. So we don't mean to bring predictive analysis right away. We want to handle the users, get the requirements, see how comfortable they're using, and then introduce the technology. And then we create a roadmap. What can they expect in BI in the next 3 years? What is it that we're bringing in? We started with tabular reporting. If you remember the growth curve I showed earlier, from standard reports to visualization. So our growth has been, in the last 5 to 6 years, moving away from standard reports to more visual reports, more interactive reports. And now we are introducing natural language processing, text analytics. So as the use cases get more and more sophisticated, we would like to bring that technology into FTA. So having that roadmap really helps users understand where we are going with the whole BI landscape. So some of our key success factors that you can take home is, again, having in-person meetings with business stakeholders, understanding what the challenges are, what their expectations are, and then building a pilot to prove those challenges rather than just a flashy demo. Building pilots really helped us resolve the challenges, and our strike rate has almost been 99% in getting funding for those new projects. And then establish a center of excellence. You know, all users are of different skill levels. Your customers, some might be power users who know how to do reports, some might need hand-holding, some might need some training. So setting up a center of excellence that has some kind of governance, some kind of training, some SOPs really goes a long way in making users comfortable with what you've got to deliver. And our message has always been more service-oriented than tool-oriented. That's, again, been another good success factor. Using the different tool sets like HANA, BI, 360, really helped improve performance across the enterprise-wide in the last couple of years. Really, I said the tickets really dropped by 60%, so which is a very interesting and progressive progress. And then continuously improving the BI landscape by looking at what the requirements are, how sophisticated they are, and then introducing the right technology to meet those really helps the business community, take care of the change and go hand in hand with what we want to introduce. So with that said, Pauline and Nathan, I would give it back to you and use the last 10 minutes to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rajesh. All right, so we went through that piece before we started, so absolutely. Why not jump to the last poll here? We've got questions that we're going to get to, so I just want to launch this last piece. Of course, how can we help? We're here to support the business objects customers around the world, and that can only happen as a part of engaging with our team and maybe even getting yourself a trial. To see how this could bring value in your landscape. So just let us know if there's anything that you'd like to chat about, or nothing at all, no worries. Like I said, we're here to support, we're here to help, and want to make sure that we're delivering that if we can be of any service. All right, so while everybody is voting in on that piece, wanted to bring up a question. So Pauline, first question, of course, was, does 360 allow for impact analysis relative to the changes of the underlying database?
Right, and I think that, yeah, further down the other question, I think she realized maybe I answered the question in the comments, but yeah, so you definitely can do impact analysis on the, so if it's a table, column that's changing, some kind of function using the database, as long as it's in the report, yeah, you can definitely get that information. And then there was a question about whether you could modify existing documents by purging data. And so I think you mean with documents that are saved with data, and you can definitely do that with 360. So you can first identify reports that have been saved with data. I mean, that, obviously takes up more space. It could be a potential security issue if the reports are saved with data. So we have a lot of customers that automate that, where they will purge. I was just talking to a customer yesterday. They do a purge. They run the report. Anything that's been saved that's longer than a month, they purge that data. You can choose to leave the prompt values in there if you want, or just some that just automatically on a big, weekly or more, less frequent basis check to see if there's anything saved with data and then purge as needed. So you can definitely do that.
Yes, indeed. Along with a ton of other useful, handy automation pieces. I'll go ahead and close this. I think everybody has spoken if they wanted to. Then we've got a question of, is 360 Suite part of SAP HANA? So the answer is no. 360 Suite is a part of our own software solution. It's a third-party solution that plugs in to help BusinessObjects customers get greater visibility, reduce the amount of risk associated with managing BusinessObjects, as well as bring efficiency, automation, bulk capabilities, compliance, all those other topics that we were talking about. Those are the things that we address. However, if you've got BusinessObjects in association with HANA, you can certainly use a lot of the capabilities to help bridge the gaps between those two applications, as well as any other data source that you might be using for BusinessObjects. Let's see, any other questions? Not at the moment. So upcoming webinars. Guys, this is really good stuff coming your way on 4.3. We've got Maheshwar Singh, who is product owner for BusinessObjects BI platform, going to give us a what's new in the latest version coming at the end of this year. That's coming up on June 19th. So I guess in about 2 weeks, 2+ weeks. Make sure that you go to the website here, 360suite.io/webinars, sign up. This is, of course, SAP driven content, a great way to get insight into what's coming. And the last time around when we had these presentations early in the year, there were well over 1,000 people that signed up. And it's just good to see and invigorate the BusinessObjects clients, the people out there every day leveraging the platform, see what's coming in terms of innovation and things to get excited about. So I think we've pretty well wrapped up content. Are there any other questions? I think we've gotten everybody so far. Make sure that you chime in if there's anything we can help with. But otherwise, Rajesh, thank you so much for the time. I believe we have come to the end of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pauline.
Thanks.
And thank you, everybody who called in and attended today. We look forward to the next time. Have a great day.